Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 presented by Stakes. We are here to preview South Carolina's game with Clemson. The Gamecocks, Blake, coming off a huge win, beating Tennessee, knocking the Vols probably out of playoff contention. This comes a week after Carolina just got obliterated in the swamp, 38-6. Clemson 2 weeks ago lost to Notre Dame 35-14, has come back and registered a 31-16 win over a good Louisville team, and then bludgeoned Miami 40-10. Two teams that have been sending out a lot of mixed signals lately. And then this is a rivalry game. Crazy stuff happens in rivalry games. What do we make of this one?
Yeah, I think South Carolina, a few more mixed signals than probably Clemson based on how the season's gone for the Gamecocks. Because, I think it's an interesting setup because, like you said, South Carolina puts up 63 against Tennessee, beats them by 25. Tennessee has a path to the college football playoff. Clemson, similar scenario here in terms of they can win the ACC championship and certainly still have a path to get there. A loss in this one completely takes them out of the equation. So South Carolina with a chance to take two teams out of the college football playoff, I think, in back-to-back weeks here. But this is a hard South Carolina team to figure out because, like you said, they're coming off a 38-6 loss at Florida, who lost to Vanderbilt. And then they turn around and beat Tennessee by 25. And remember, all this without Marshawn Lloyd, too. And I think that's...
And Christian Beal-Smith.
Yeah, and I think, it's just been a weird team to figure out. And remember, again, they're not that far away from losing as a top 25 team at home to Missouri either. So, yeah, very up and down for the Gamecocks. But, hey, if you're talking about heading into the rivalry game with a chance to send Clemson, out of the playoff picture, you couldn't ask for better momentum than they have right now coming out of that Tennessee game. So,
yeah, and look, Carolina has had some road wins. One at Kentucky, one at Vandy. So there's that also.
Yeah, but they've also lost at home to Missouri and got blown out at Florida. So, I think that's
Stop
the mixed bag.
saying things that are inconvenient to my narrative here, Blake.
Well, I'm just saying, it's just inconsistency, man. Again, we're not.
I know.
We're not picking on South Carolina because, like we said, what else can you say about what they did against Tennessee? But if you look at kind of how things have gone, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, let's just quickly go through, how they've gotten here, okay? One at Kentucky. Let's start there. All right? They turn around and beat A&M at home. All right, you got some momentum, right? Well, then they turn around and, lay an egg at home against Missouri and lose by 13. They go to Vanderbilt and win. They go to Florida and lose by 32. They come back home and play a top 5 Tennessee team and win by 25 and put up 63 points. So you tell me where the consistency is in there and try to figure out what you're going to get from them in this one. That's just
and by the way, Tennessee got a late touchdown. That was a 32 point lead at one point just to make it a little stranger.
Yeah, it's just been a strange season.
I feel like we could take one of those magic 8 balls and ask it and probably come up with something better than whatever it is we're about to say, given the way Carolina's played. But anyway, let's talk about the matchup. When Carolina's got the ball, Gamecocks averaging 31.7 per game. Clemson has averaged giving up 20 a game. Carolina's lost 12 fumbles and 11 picks. One of the worst teams. I think it's the next worst team in the league in front of Auburn in turnover margin. Clemson has recovered 7 fumbles and 9 picks. Spencer Rattler has been sacked at times. The Gamecocks giving up 24 sacks. Clemson has registered 32. Carolina pretty balanced. It averages 30 rushing plays a game, 22 pass plays, and a sack counts as a pass play, by the way. In those, Carolina's averaging 4.7 per rush play. Clemson giving up 4.5. Carolina averaging 7.2 per pass play. Clemson giving up only 5.2. I don't know if you call Clemson's defense elite, but it's pretty close. Spencer Rattler, we have kind of not been real complimentary of his play this year. He was phenomenal against Tennessee. Now, it helped that Tennessee played a soft zone. he had guys running open all day. But Carolina's also got some playmakers. It's got Van, it's got Bell. It's got a lot of dudes even without that running back room.
Yeah, I still think though that's a big part of the equation in a game like this to me, because and I don't know. Like again, we're recording this on Monday. As always, we'll update it on Wednesday night on our live stream on Marshawn Lloyd's status because I think that's still a big part of the because again, right? I mean, their offense can be different with him on the field. We just know kind of what he can do. So I think that's an important aspect certainly to watch in this one. But again, you're probably not going to have a ton of success against Clemson on the ground. At least that's the statistically something that hasn't happened a lot this year. And then, like I said, Rattler. I mean, he had 8 touchdowns coming in, on the season coming into that game. They throw 6 against Tennessee, and so it's like, what are you going to see here? But like you said, I think that is kind of an underrated group in terms of the playmakers they have in the passing game. And, I think that's clearly probably going to be where they're going to have to challenge Clemson here because I think doing it running the ball statistically for a team that only gives up 106.5 a game in Clemson, that's going to be a hard thing to do. So, yeah, I mean, look, Chris, you're asking me to try to figure out what we're going to see from the South Carolina offense. They go from scoring 7 at Florida or whatever, 6 at Florida to 63 against Tennessee. Like it's just
and those 6 were special teams.
yeah, man.
So
It's just right. It's a good point. Like it's just, I mean, what do you say? And again, I just don't. It's just hard to figure out. Because it has like you go back to the Missouri game, right? They score 10. Vandy they score 38. Florida they score 6. Tennessee they score 63. It's just all over the board. And but Spencer Rattler is the key here. If they're going to pull off the upset, it's all about Spencer Rattler and how he plays. Because guess what? 3 games now hasn't thrown an interception, 9 touchdowns in that stretch. Of course, 6 of them came against Tennessee, but that's what you want to see. Like just clean football from him and not throwing an interception. That's a good trend. But I think he is certainly the key here because again, this Clemson defense, let's call it what it is. They may look like it in the same uniforms, but Tennessee's defense is not Clemson's defense. And I think that's going to be something, we'll see how South Carolina approaches this one.
okay, before we talk about the other side of the matchup, Stakes, our presenting sponsor, gets a word here. You can predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can forever cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com. That's STAKES /14. Use our invite code Southeastern14. Get a double welcome bonus. It's a predictions app, not a betting app. Free to join, free to play. You can win stuff. You can support our channel. What's not to like? Go to Stakes today and sign up if you haven't. Okay. When Carolina's got the ball, when Carolina's on defense, Gamecocks giving up 27.3 a game. Clemson averaging 34.7. Clemson has lost 10 fumbles and 7 picks. Carolina has recovered 6 and picked off 11. Cornerback Cam Smith, one of the better ones around. Carolina has registered 17 sacks. Clemson's given up 23. On rushing plays, Clemson averaging 5.2, which is what Carolina gives up. Passing plays, I feel like these teams are like a mirror image. Clemson averaging 6.2 per pass play. Carolina giving up 6.1. Clemson's bread is buttered on the offensive side of the ball. Clemson averages 38 rush plays, 35 pass plays. Given where Carolina is vulnerable, I think you will see Clemson probably go a little run heavy in this one, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're playing the stats, I think that's something that you'll try to take advantage of, right? Because you do have a quarterback that can make things happen with his legs. Elsewhere, I think you look at it. I mean, Will Shipley's had a pretty good season, right? I mean, he's got 13 touchdowns. He's almost to that 1,000 receiving. He's thinking he's 40 yards to hit the 1,000-yard mark. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the approach you'll see here in terms of what Clemson tries to do against the South Carolina defense. And like we said, it's South Carolina's defense is one that, they they've done some good things, but there are also some gaps in there that I think this Clemson offense, though, right? It's kind of um, one of those that is kind of interesting because you kind of look at how they played throughout the season, and but yeah, I mean, the more you look at this, I think for Clemson, like you said, it's pretty clear. Don't turn the ball over. Try to run the ball quite a bit. They'll still be able to do some things in the passing game, I think, but yeah, I just think running the ball with Shipley and what they'll be able to do with that, and again, having a versatile quarterback that can also do some things on the ground, that'll be a big part of the equation, I think, for Clemson here.
Okay, some other stats we like to throw in before we get to the picks. Carolina is getting penalized 64 yards a game. Clemson just 51. Carolina gets a little emotional at times. And I think sometimes that gets a little bit the best of the Gamecocks. You've seen that play out at times. So I think keeping emotions in check. And I'm not blaming Shane Beamer for this. I love the way he coaches his team. But that's an emotional coach. Sometimes your team follows that a little bit. Anyway, I've seen Carolina get a little bit off center with just letting emotions get the best of it in a game. And so that'll be something to watch for on the road. Special teams. We have said all year Carolina's got the best in the country, according to FEI. The Gamecocks number 1 coming into the Tennessee game. Those stats have not updated yet. Clemson, though, pretty good, ranking 22nd. Strength of schedule, Carolina's has been a little bit harder for what that's worth between Sagarin and ESPN's FPI. The average of 37 there for Carolina, 55 for Clemson. Okay, we've got a line of 14.5 in Clemson's favor. We've got an over-under of 50.5 as of Monday morning. That predicts a final score of 33-18 in Clemson's favor. Over-under, based on what the teams have done, Blake, should be closer to 57. I say should be. That's just, again, on the average of what the teams have done. What do we have from covers or whatever else you've got to maybe add some insight to this game?
Yep, for the Clemson fans, we always say in our SEC previews, we are not professional bettors, but we just give you some fun trends from covers if you are a professional bettor and you want to look at different things. Here you go. South Carolina 1-9-1 against the spread in their last 11 games following an against the spread win. So, of course, they covered against Tennessee. 1-9-1 in their last 11 when they do cover. Clemson, meanwhile, 2-9 against the spread in their last 11 non-conference games. So, yeah, neither of these teams seemingly good trends in that one. But here's an interesting one: the road team 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 meetings between these two in this rivalry. Statistically, Chris, if I'm looking at this, points per game, yards gained, yards allowed, time of possession, red zone, kicking, and penalties. These are all covers, kind of their main stats they put on there. Clemson has the edge in every single one of those this season in terms of looking at those things statistically. So I think you're going to give the edge to Clemson here. And again, they're a 14.5-point favorite. That's not a shock that I would probably pick them to win. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how South Carolina approaches this one. I've seen some South Carolina fans mention the hope is that offensively you try to attack the same way you did against Tennessee, although that's going to be harder to do because you're going to have to adjust some things. There were some things they could do to attack Tennessee's defense that they're not going to be able to do against Clemson.
Not
so
even
how do
close.
yeah, and it's like, how do they adjust to that? Do they still try to be aggressive though? Because I think that's a big part of it. And if you get too aggressive, what's that look like from Spencer Rattler's standpoint? So yeah, a lot of unknowns, I think, for South Carolina, just because they have been up and down. Whether Lloyd plays, I mean, that would be a big boost to the offense, even if Clemson's been good against the run. Let's call it what it is. I mean, he's still a really good player. But yeah, I think Clemson's the pick here. But could they keep it within that 2 touchdown range? South Carolina, of course they could. If they come out and play, I just don't think they're going to play the way they did against Tennessee because that's a lot to ask for. But if they can come out and do some things offensively the way they did in that game and just try to find some kind of momentum off of that, absolutely they could keep this close for sure.
I think this is a check back with us on game on Wednesday because I want to see if Lloyd and Christian Beal-Smith play, because if they don't, I think it's going to be tougher to bite this one off because Clemson's D is so tough. So that's something to consider. I mean, I think Clemson's going to win this game. I feel like 14.5 is a lot given the way that Carolina has played on the road at times and given the way Clemson's offense isn't exactly explosive Now, Carolina's had some defensive issues too. I just think that, I mean, look, this is a team that just upset a top 5 team in the country and blew it off the field. And I know that stylistically, Clemson's going to be a lot different. 14.5 to me just feels like a lot. And I do feel like the pattern of Carolina's offense is to kind of go back in the toilet after a big performance like last week. Now, that might be a little harsh, but what I'm getting is I feel like I like Clemson to win, Carolina to cover, and the under to hit, even though based on what the teams have done, again, the stats would suggest that the over hits here, but I get a feeling that this is going to be a defensive-oriented game in the style that Clemson wants.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like you talk about they have played well on the road at times, but we cannot forget that the 38-6 game happened in Gainesville. And
Yeah.
I think that's just again to go from one extreme to the other in back-to-back games. That's just like that's a team that's by definition is hard to figure out. So this is a road game against a tough opponent, and so I just think it's we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, this is kind of a for me this is like a stay away game because I think Clemson's the better team, but like I said South Carolina certainly earned a lot of positive momentum after last week.
Okay, again, remember to check out our live stream on Wednesday nights where we may give you some injury updates on these games. Best way to do that, hit the subscribe button. That helps us out. That helps you know when our content is coming. We've got all kinds of stuff up between football and basketball this week. And again, we preview every single SEC game for the season. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you again soon at Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes.